what is Indian political thought? It has been a big issue. There is a very interesting article on this by Sasish Hegde. What is Indian political thought in EPW? One can have a look at that also. I think there are two perspectives on this. One is of the Orientalists who think that there is something called Indian mind, and Indian mind thinks spiritually. Indian West is rational, East is spiritual. That has been the kind of understanding. And a lot of other features they count that what is the Indian mind. Indian mind is very different than the Western mind. The other approach is that no, actually all of us are human beings. We have been facing similar problems everywhere. And we have been responding to those problems in the same way. The only difference is due to our context. And context is a broad term for society, history, your political economy, your geography. So that is this context makes us little different. What is Indian in that? Let me make it slightly simpler. It's a little complicated. What happened in the West, in the modern West? In the modern West, if you look at the history of Western political thought by Bertrand Russell, very nice book. It traces the history. So in the beginning what happened, there was a dominance of church. And the church was suggesting, how do you know? What is the knowledge? They said, God has made the world. It has its own laws. Only God knows the laws. And God selects somebody whom the law is given. Chosen people. The knowledge is revealed. Some people know the law, right? And those people are people of the church. And of course, you know divine origin theory of the state. So God creates the state and the king. Then there was the development of science. And in the development of science, then there was a big debate whether human beings have capacity and right to intervene in the nature or not. So everybody knows about Galileo. So Galileo said that look, God has given us eyes, and the work of the eye is to observe. If we do not observe, then that will be working against the God. Similarly, God has given us reason. So after looking at things with our eyes, observing things, if we don't reason and try to know, then that will be working against God. Therefore, all human beings have right to know, right to observe, right to analyze, right to know. Now this is a big difficulty, big fight between the church and these emerging scientists. So one person who was a mathematician, I guess, who solved this problem, the fight between the two. His name was Descartes. What did he do? He said, look, don't fight. Let the material world be the world for investigation of science, and let the world of ideas and consciousness be for religion. So he divided two worlds, which is known in the West as mind-body problem. That mind is different than the body. Right? There's a very interesting story about this. Let me share that with you. There was a professor in D school, Professor Ravinder Ray. So he was a sociologist. He was a Naxalite for 10-15 years. Then he did his PhD from Oxford and then became a professor. So he was not there in the college, university once for some time. So I asked him, you were not here? Where were you? He said, I was in the hospital. I said, what happened? Everything fine? Well, no, nothing is fine. I have a problem every summer, some mental problem I have. So I asked him, are you well treated and fine? He said, no. The problem is they are treating my brain. I have a problem in my mind. So this is a big problem. Whether the problem is in mind or in brain. So till now, if you look at the cinema, Hindi cinema, it's a very big problem. In the Hindi cinema, you will see the mental hospitals are treating human beings by giving shocks. That was early. Why? They thought that some wire in the brain got disconnected. इसलिए कहते हैं स्क्रू ढीला हो गया है, ये सब जो कहते हैं हम लोग इसलिए कहते हैं कि उनको लगता है कि इसी में प्रॉब्लम, यहाँ प्रॉब्लम, ब्रेन में कुछ प्रॉब्लम है. बट यदि किसी माइंड में प्रॉब्लम हो जाए तो क्या करेंगे? तो व्हाट इज द माइंड एंड ब्रेन? सो फॉर Descartes, he said that brain is physical, mind is separate. Let's not talk about mind. That is religion's work. So that separation was created. And that became a big problem in the West. After that, whatever thought has been developed in the West has been developed on this basis that the two domains are separate. So I was just conducting survey of philosophers, what are they doing in the West? And 90% of the philosophers are trying to bring mind and body together. That is their problem. What happened in India, this distinction did not happen. Right, that is the Indian political thought, that we do not distinguish between mind and the body. Therefore, those who look at Gandhi from the West, they are very confused. Is he a sannyasi or a sansari? Gandhi says, I am both sannyasi and sansari. So that is the problem. Like, he meditates, he goes for yoga, he restricts his food and everything he does, which is non-modern, but he does everything modern. He maintains a timetable, he writes his diaries, he writes his autobiography. All this is very modern. So there is a confusion that they find in this. This non-distinction between mind and body, I think unique in the Indian thought. Like Ambedkar, I said, after doing everything which is very legal, suddenly he says that I am converting to Buddhism, which is hardly not modern, which is non-modern. Why did he get converted into it? Because he said, no matter how beautiful constitution you make, if the human beings running that country will not be good, then everything will fail. So this distinction, I think, non-distinction is very unique, which is called non-duality in Indian tradition. And this is where also we find contradictions, because sometimes we want to become modern, we want to keep these things, two things different, but we fail to. That is one of the contradictions that we are facing all the time, right? So this, I think, is Indian thought. Both non-distinction between mind and body, one, and second, contradictions emerging due to the modernity tradition conflict, right? That is Indian thought. Swaraj for Gandhi was not freedom of the nation only now. It is freedom of all kinds. And now there is a big problem of freedom. There is a case being filed in Geneva on the cognitive freedom. With the AI and chat GPT and all these things, people are suggesting that your imagination is being hacked now. What do you think? How will you think? On that also I can control. I have a control. I do this exercise, for instance. I ask people to make a picture of house. Right? What kind of picture you will make? Like this? Have you seen this kind of house anywhere near you? No, not. You have not seen anywhere. But that is the house is there in your imagination. It means your imagination is not really reflecting the reality. Your imagination of house has been hacked. Are you getting my point? So this is entirely possible now, particularly with this new technology and all that, the way AI is coming, that we think that we are thinking originally, but actually our thought is completely controlled. There is nothing new in this. Gramsci has already talked about hegemony. But now the process has become much more possible. So cognitive freedom is itself becoming a problem. Therefore, there is a big debate now emerging, and Kamal has been part of that, the decolonizing mind, that our mind is colonized and it has to be decolonized. So Swaraj, I think, has to re-emerge in a new form, right? Not only autonomy of the state from the colonial power, but also autonomy of individuals, so that you can achieve what you want to achieve. So therefore, this concept remains very valid, and maybe in next 50 years you will find this concept re-emerging in a big way, in different forms maybe. One form, of course, you have been seeing azadi, Azadi, the Azadi slogan is coming up. What is that after all? Azadi is also Swaraj, isn't it? Yeah. एक आलोचनात्मक लहजे में कह रहे थे उन लोगों को जो लोग ये कह रहे थे कि हिंदुस्तान को सिविलाइज होने के लिए हमें वेस्ट का नकल करना पड़ेगा। लेकिन टैगोर खुद भी देखिए उन्होंने कितना एक्सपेरिमेंट किया। टैगोर ने इंग्लैंड में एक भाषण दिया जो आप शायद पढ़ते होंगे, रिलीजन ऑफ मैन। उस किताब को पढ़ेंगे तो उसके उस भाषण के बाद एक और ऐसे है, वो है बाउल के ऊपर। और उन्होंने ऑक्सफोर्ड में ये बात कही कि मेरा जो फिलॉसफी है वो मैंने आपसे नहीं लिया है, वो मैंने बाउल से लिया है। अब बाउल कौन लोग थे? अभी भी हैं बाउल्स, बंगाल चले जाएं आप तो बहुत से बाउल्स हैं जो गाना गाते हुए घूमते हैं। और क्या गाना गाते हैं? मोनेर मानुस, उनकी कविता का एक टाइटल है मोनेर मानुस। आपके मन के अंदर एक मनुष्य है, उसको जगाइए आप, मोनेर मानुस। तो खुद भी उन्होंने पूरा एक्सपेरिमेंट किया, यूनिवर्सिटी बनाया तो वेस्टर्न यूनिवर्सिटी के मॉडल के बिल्कुल विपरीत बनाया। वेस्टर्न यूनिवर्सिटी का मॉडल क्या था कि आप एक बाउंड्री वॉल क्रिएट करके एक यूनिवर्सिटी बना दीजिए। उन्होंने शांति निकेतन बनाया जिसके गवर्निंग बॉडी में गांव के लोग हैं। अभी किसी ने मुझे कहानी बताई कि एक समय में गांव के कुछ बच्चे आ गए वहाँ पे वाइस चांसलर के कमरे के पास और मीटिंग चल रही थी। तो वाइस चांसलर ने निकल के पूछा, मीटिंग रोक दी, पूछा कि क्या बात है। तो बच्चों ने कहा कि मैं तो आपको घूमते हुए देखता हूँ साइकिल से वहाँ पे बराबर, लेकिन मैं आपको ऑफिस में देखना चाहता था कि आप क्या करते हैं और मैं क्या इसमें यहाँ पे होता है। तो उसने मीटिंग रोक के आधे घंटे तक उस बच्चे के साथ बातचीत करी, उसको घुमाया और फिर वापस आके मीटिंग किया। ये यूनिवर्सिटी का उनका मॉडल था। मॉडर्न मॉडल बिल्कुल उसके विपरीत है कि पहला काम क्या है, गेट पे एक दरबान लगाया गया और आपके आसपास कौन लोग रहते हैं उससे भी आपका कोई परिचय नहीं है। अब जैसे जेएनयू देखिए, जेएनयू में मुनिरका में जो लोग रहते हैं उन्हें ही पता नहीं कि अंदर कौन लोग रहते हैं, ना आपस में कोई बातचीत है, कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन क्रिएट हो जाता है। ये मॉडर्न यूनिवर्सिटी का चक्कर है। तो मुझे लगता है टैगोर ने खुद ही बहुत सारे एक्सपेरिमेंट्स किए जिसमें कि उन्होंने चीज़ों को बहुत बदला। और कॉलोनाइज होने के बाद भी आज की तारीख में भी ये स्ट्रगल हमारे अंदर है कि हमें किस तरह का मॉडर्न होना है। जैसे एक नॉवेल जो मुझे बहुत पसंद है, एक फ्रेंच नॉवेलिस्ट है मिचेल वेलबैक, उसका एक नॉवल है एटोमाइज्ड। तो वो मॉडर्निटी के क्लाइमेक्स को दिखाता है। उस नॉवल में क्या होता है कि एक ह्यूमन जेनोम का साइंटिस्ट है, वो पूरा घूमता है। और जीनोम साइंटिस्ट का मतलब है वो काम करता है जीनोम एडिटिंग पे, जो अब हो गया लगभग आने वाला है कि आपके जेनेटिक्स में एडिटिंग करके आने वाली संतति का साइज़ और सब कुछ बढ़ाया जा सकता है, बदला जा सकता है। He was a scientist of that kind, so he was looking at things from a very different angle, and then he was suggesting that in the community, in the society where he is traveling, human beings have become atom. They are living like atoms. So in a society, in a flat where he was staying, he said there are thousands of flats here, and 70% people are living single in that alone. So loneliness, now the ministry of loneliness has been founded. So I don't know if we have been really starving for that kind of modernity. I don't think we are. So there has always been a problem of that kind. And in that, I think what they discovered about religion was interesting. All of them were, as I said, taking religion very seriously. They were finding that religion as a factor that was uniting us, that was bringing us together. At the same time, religion was a factor in which lot of structures of domination were inbuilt, right? Against women, against caste, against other religion. So they were fighting this battle against the British, but also fighting a battle within themselves. So most of them were simultaneously reforming religion, constantly reforming religion. And therefore, there is no doubt about it that the form of religion that was existing at that time was one of the major factors of India's social and political problem. And therefore, everybody worked on that, right? I think the aim is to create, if we think of the modern thinkers who were having this contradiction between modernity and tradition, what was their aim? I call them philosophers of liberation. Their aim was to create a kind of society where human beings can live peacefully. Right? Now, if that was the idea, then they were shopping among the ideas for creating a new philosophy of liberation. For instance, Gandhi says that the best model of governance probably would be oceanic circle. You remember that famous story, Gandhi's story, that there will be a small group, then there will be a bigger group, like circle, right? But at that time, since parliament was something that everybody accepted, he said, I have no strength to argue against the parliament or convince people for oceanic circle, so I am holding it for the time being. Right? But the struggle is unfinished. Who once again raised this question? Jayaprakash Narayan. After emergency, movement against emergency, he wrote a book called Total Revolution. He said, a country like India will have to go back to that kind of system of oceanic circle to survive. Parliamentary democracy has a big problem. Now we can see the problem of parliamentary democracy is very much visible to us, isn't it? How parliamentary democracy is not actually allowing democracy to function. There's a partisanship. Gandhi's critique of parliamentary democracy is very valid that way. So I think their concern was creating a liberated society. What is a liberated society? Very nice article by Akhil Bilgrami on Gandhi as a philosopher. You must read that. He says, a non-alienated society in which human beings are not alienated. If that kind of society could be established, that will be good society. So all of them had a model of a good society, that in which structure of domination should not be there, human beings should not be alienated. Now this model, I think, is a model which goes beyond modernity and tradition. A model that was nurtured in one way by Marx, other way by Gandhi, and many more philosophers. So one last line about this, that what is freedom? If my freedom is not guarantee of your freedom, then no freedom is possible. Remember Gandhi, if you have seen Gandhi movie, no, you have not seen Gandhi movie? You must watch the movie. Everybody should watch Gandhi's movie. In this what happens, all big people are sitting, right? They are waiting for Gandhi to enter on the stage. So Jinnah is there, Nehru is there, Patel, everybody is sitting. Gandhi has just come back after traveling all over the country as a social scientist almost, and by then he changed his dress. So he enters in the scene, and there's a waiter. All these people were very rich. So he enters the scene, and there's a waiter, well-dressed waiter, holding a tray with tea, serving them. And Gandhi enters, he takes the tray from this waiter and says, unless there is a equality between us and this person, we will not be able to fight for equality against the British. Right? That is the idea beyond, I guess. Never. When I'm saying that we must remember that India is an old civilization and there is a continuity from there, we should never think that we can go back to that. Right? We can only go forward. While going forward, whatever is available best in the world, we must adopt that. Whatever is available best in the world. So what is modern in the modern, and why we need to engage with modern, and yet why we need to go beyond that. The modern has a big advantage of epistemic frame, the process of thinking that it has started, which does not essentially go against the frame that India had. For instance, if you go by the argument that East is East and West is West, and two can never meet. Who said that? Rudyard Kipling. I think there is a problem in this, because this formulation has an idea that East is spiritual, West is rational. Amartya Sen's book is very crucial in this, who says that all societies are rational and all societies are spiritual. Human beings are rational and spiritual simultaneously. So all human beings have one great capacity, that is reflexive capacity. What is a reflexive capacity? Suppose we all are locked in this room and key is lost. All of us will start thinking how to go out, and each one of us can think very differently about how to go out. So human mind has capacity to solve n number of problems in n number of ways, right? That is creativity. Now all human beings living in any part of the world have that capacity, just because they are human beings. And they have used that capacity to solve their problems. While solving their problems, they have innovated a lot of things. All knowledge systems created by them in this process of solving their problems are genuine knowledge systems, right? At this juncture, our duty is to engage with all such knowledge systems democratically, without thinking one as superior or other as inferior. The only difference that could be that if one place people are facing one kind of problem, they will definitely have more knowledge about that kind of problem. If another place they face another kind of problem, they will have more knowledge about that problem. For instance, areas where there is a lot of scarcity of water, they will develop several kinds of knowledge to protect water, right? Area where there is abundance of water, they will never have that kind of idea. So we have developed different kinds of knowledge systems. So the modern West has developed many things which are extremely important for human survival. So we must adopt that. But that does not mean that modern West has developed, whatever it has developed is good. Like the tribal community has tremendous capacity and wonderful knowledge to survive with the forest. For thousands of years they have lived with the forest without destroying the forest. So they have the knowledge how to handle it. We have destroyed, in 100 years we have destroyed the entire forest of this region. So if we have to learn how to protect forest, we have to go to tribals. That is the point. But that does not, if we have other knowledge, but if you go to the tribals and tell them that your knowledge about forest is also wrong, then probably there is a problem there. That is the only point I am making. That the modern philosophy that came from there, or modern tradition that came from there, has a lot of interesting things, important things, particularly reclaiming the individual liberty that the modernity has done is extremely important. Other traditions must have it, but they abandoned that at some stage. So arguments for reclaiming individual liberty, we have to learn from them at times. But that liberty should not lead us to individualism, atomization of individuals, right? The climax is that we become atomized. So there is a problem in that. So how do we reconcile between the two? The individual liberty on the one hand and community living on the other hand. That is our challenge. I think these thinkers were trying to explore those possibilities where the gains of modernity could be protected, right? And we can go beyond that to create a new society. Because by then, they were understanding the limits of the modern civilization also. Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, if you look at his critique of the technology, so it looks very limited if you just only think of railways and others. But now when AI and other things are developing, this is so obvious how correct Gandhi was. Absolutely. Isn't it? True. That how technology will create a problem for human beings. So that is where I think they were really searching for something very new. It is not between modernity and tradition. Appropriating the gains of Western civilization, the advantages, but abandoning the disadvantages of that and negotiating with that and with something that is very strongly available in Indian tradition. How to combine the two together is a challenge. Even today it is a big challenge. Even today it is a challenge. And I think your generation will have to contribute in this direction in future. How to negotiate with not only India and the West, but even other civilizations. Lot of African civilizations. There is the Zulu civilization which has this word Ubuntu, which is very popular. So there are a lot of strength there that we have to appropriate to save humanity. The point that I did not make earlier, but now I can say that many of the philosophers are suggesting that humanity is standing at a very dangerous juncture, and it may finish itself if it does not change the philosophy. The search for new philosophy is something that is happening today, because the old philosophy of the modern West is reaching to its climax in terms of atomization, and consequence of that is the war that is going on today, and this war may escalate. So unless we have a new philosophy, we will not be able to get out of it. That is a problem, right?